Hey, everybody, and welcome back to For the B-oos.
For the B-oos, back again.
For the B-oos. That's us.
We are back, and we are finishing up our springtime kickoff with Island Life. And we're going to be doing a place that's, I don't think you've ever heard of it before.
I haven't.
I don't think a lot of people have ever heard of this. It's called Daksa.
Daksa?
And it is a tiny, tiny little island with a very bad past to it.
Oh.
Yeah, some stuff went down there. I don't want to get too into it because I don't want to give too much away.
I want to spoil the surprise.
No, and it's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, but I wanted to be able to get this one in there before our springtime was over, because this is the one that actually was supposed to kick off the island episodes, and I just couldn't find enough.
The one you struggled with.
Yes, and I still struggled with it, but I feel like I found enough to tell the story. And outside of what we're going to tell you, there's probably not going to be a lot much else that you can find. So we'll discuss that at the end. But it's a kind of a strange one. Now, before we get into this, though, we do have some big news.
We do.
What's that big news?
So there is this magazine called Voyage Tampa Magazine. And we got an email, which you thought.
I thought it was a joke, or I thought it was like garbage mail.
Junk mail, right.
I wasn't even going to check it.
Got an email, and so you decided to read it. And it was actually a real magazine.
Yep.
After we looked into it, and they were wanting to do an interview on For the B-oos podcast.
That's right. They were going to do a little article on our podcast, and it's all thanks to friend of the show, Benjamin Ford.
Yay!
Who actually recommended us to them. So, Ben, buddy, if you're out there listening, we missed the stories.
Yes.
And we appreciate you so much for helping make this happen. And we are super excited.
We are so very excited. This is our first little bit of
notoriety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like just being noticed a little bit, you know?
Yes.
And we had a really fun time writing our interview portion of it and just kind of, answering some questions.
A fun game for anybody who's listening. If you want to go on there, we kept swapping the computer back and forth to answer questions. So while you read, see if you can tell, because I actually got to see the finished version already, and you can't really tell.
Oh.
It flows very nicely. So I guess that just means that we have good chemistry.
That's true. We do.
I should hope so. We're married. But we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to do this kind of old school again. We're going to just have a discussion. I just want to read something to you. I want to teach you something today about a place that like I said, I just don't think a lot of people are going to know about. And I think this could be an interesting one. I'm
very much looking forward to it. I know you've been super pumped about this one. And I'm glad we're able to finally do it.
There's going to be some little twists in the end.
Ooh.
So let's get started on Daksa Island.
Let's do it.
The history of Dubrovnik is a fascinating study of the rise of a great maritime power that lived in peace and prosperity for nearly 5 centuries. Dubrovnik was originally called Ragusa and was formed in the 7th century when coastal residents took refuge under the onslaught of barbarian invasions.
Barbarians?
Barbarians.
That's a while ago.
Just throwing it back. Throw it back, girl.
Throwing it on back.
Now, like you would think, walls were quickly built to protect the new settlement. Over the next 4 centuries, Ragusa expanded its influence over the coast and became increasingly prosperous by trading with other maritime cities. In 1205, it fell under the control of Venice, but it managed to break away in 1358. By the 15th century, the Republic of Ragusa was a major rival of Venice for control of the Adriatic waterways, trading with the Near East and Europe. It maintained its independence through canny diplomacy and used its wealth to expand its cultural and political influence. In 1667, Dubrovnik was devastated by a major earthquake and destroyed most of its Renaissance art and architecture.
Wow. That's really sad.
It sucks.
That's really sad.
It is. I bet it was beautiful.
Yeah, you build this whole town and village.
Society, really.
Everything, and it's just gone.
But to have nothing left, it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
Especially for the people who live there, because that's a piece of their heritage and their
absolutely
their history that's gone now.
Ugh, rough.
Now, only the Sponza Palace and the Rector's Palace survived the destruction. The city was reconstructed in the Baroque style that can be seen today. Now, after the earthquake, Dubrovnik fell into decline, hastened by the emergence of other European naval powers. It was Napoleon who finally put an end to the Republic in 1806 when he entered the city and announced its annexation. In 1815, the Congress of Vienna seceded Dubrovnik to Austria, to whom it remained attached until 1918. Dubrovnik began to develop its tourist industry in the late 19th century. Luminaries such as Lord Byron, George Bernard Shaw, and Agatha Christie were in awe by the town, and Dubrovnik began developing its tourist business. Those are pretty historical names.
Yeah, those are some big names for sure.
I don't know. I actually don't know anything about Dubrovnik. Do you?
No, I definitely don't.
Well, apparently it's a very beautiful, like, tourist place. But
Wow.
I'm from Florida and I'm not very cultured, so big shocker there that I don't know what it is.
I think the farthest
The Bahamas.
we've ever gone is the Bahamas, so that's quite a ways to go.
And their culture, well, I mean, they have culture, of course, but it's very similar looking to Florida, honestly.
Wow, that's cool.
Now, with the outbreak of World War II, Dubrovnik and the rest of Croatia fell under the control of the Axis powers, which were the bad side of World War II. Now, Italian forces occupied Dubrovnik from 1941 to 1943, at which point the city was passed to the Germans. Terrible time for that.
Oh, that is.
So
that's really
that
rough.
means under the power of Hitler.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, thank you.
It's bad.
Ugh.
Now, Marshal Josip Broz Tito's partisans formed the only effective resistance to German occupation, and the city was liberated in 1944. Modern-day visitors to Dubrovnik, taking in its panoramic sea, cannot fail to notice the idyllic isles that dot the near horizon. The nearest two to the mainland are Lokrum and Daksa. They stand bare and undeveloped. While Dubrovnik is crammed with hotels and restaurants, the seemingly rural retreats remain untouched. Lokrum, although frequented by day, has no overnight stays. And Daksa is studiously avoided, but why?
Interesting.
A historic resort of celebrated beauty and the jewel of the Adriatic, Dubrovnik is not just pristine fortifications, fine dining, and cafe culture. Off its coast lie two islands with dark histories. One of them, Lokrum, is accessible by a regularly scheduled, invariably crowded taxi boat. And the other, Daksa, has no links to the mainland. In fact, it's actually avoided by the locals.
Oh, that kind of sounds familiar.
It's pretty ominous, yes.
Yeah.
Now, every day, thousands head out from Dubrovnik's old port for a day of tranquil relaxation at Lokrum, with no knowledge of its past. No hotels, tourist villas, or guest houses stand on the island. Legends and suspicions have surrounded this beautiful island of palm trees and pines since its long-term residents were removed back in 1798. Settled on the island since the early 11th century, the community of Benedictine monks were evicted by Napoleon's troops. The night before their expulsion, the Benedictines... I have a feeling I'm saying that wrong. We'll just run with it.
Okay, that sounds good.
The Benedictines, those bennies, placed a curse on those who usurped their sacred ground. Now, from the exclusive beach bistro of the 5-star Dubrovnik Presidential Hotel, Daksa is just another splash of green and an idyllic panorama of verdant isles lapped by the Azer of the Adriatic. Looking at the map, it is so close you can almost swim there. Yet, the dotted lines indicating sailing routes studiously avoided, skirting around for the Elafidi Islands beyond, or even Bari in southern Italy. So these boats will go way out of their way to avoid this little island.
And not go anywhere near it.
Nowhere near
That is, and it's on maps. Like, that's not just like, oh, hey, buddy, when you get over here, like, just try to avoid that.
Oh, no.
It's, wow.
It is. I've read so many things that said that this place is just like, there might as well be a force field on it.
Yeah.
Because people avoid it like the plague.
That's crazy. Wow. Very, very interesting.
Now, the island of Daksa lies north from the city of Dubrovnik, just 1.5 nautical miles, and it is the closest island that you see in front of the main port of Gruz. In the distant past, it had been home of the Franciscan monks who built their monastery and lived on the island since 1291. There on Daksa Island in the 17th century, inspired by the religious themes, Dubrovnik's famous Baroque poet Ivan Gundulic wrote the verses of his poem, quote, "The Tears of the Prodigal Son." Once it was an island that provided inspiration and peace. It had been a haven of spirituality. Today, it is an island of doom, overcast by the shadows of the atrocious happenings from World War II. Daksa is uninhabited and considered a forsaken island. The small piece of land, shaped like a boomerang, is covered in dark pine trees that are trying to hide the horrors and the shame of bloody crimes from 1944.
Wow.
Only a few empty and derelict buildings are to be found on Daksa. The old monastery with the Church of Our Lady, another church dedicated to Saint Sabina, the old family summer villa, the lighthouse, and the house where the family of the lightkeeper had once lived. After partisans entered Dubrovnik on the 18th of October in 1944, coming from Serbia and Montenegro, they arrested more than 300 citizens of Dubrovnik. Among these people were many prominent citizens, politicians, and also businessmen, intellectuals, priests, and other distinguished figures known for their previous works. Among all of them, there was hardly anybody who had anything to do with the fascist war crimes from 1941. Still, their judges, jury, and executors, all in one, acted on the principle, whoever is not with us is against us. They were declared to be Nazi collaborators and national enemies.
Okay.
So, think about that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's like if somebody came in here now and said, "You're a Nazi sympathizer, and we're going to deal with you." I'd be like, "I had nothing to do with that."
Yeah, like what?
And this is what they did to these people. They just came in and rounded them up and said, "You're Nazi sympathizers," and they were like, "No, we're not." And they're like, "Yes, you are. Come with us."
That's freaking awful, man.
It's almost more scary than the Nazis coming in.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you're being persecuted for things that you had nothing to do with, but some of the worst things that ever happened in history.
Oh, my God.
So, the fatal night of October 24th was just the beginning of the practice that lasted for several days. Dozens of people were brought from the city prisons of St. Lawrence Fort, Carmen, and Labrinite, and other places where they had been held as captives. They were taken to the nearby island of Daksa. The Mandrake Harbor on the little island was the last station for the miserable people. Among the first victims were the 3 Franciscan monks. They were stripped, and then they were forced to dig their own graves. They died singing praises to the Lord, and others would follow. The gunshots echoed loudly through the dark autumn night. The several consecutive nights of that October, the men were all falling into the shallow pits of Daksa, one by one, killed in cold blood with a bullet in the back.
Oh, my God.
A few days after, on Sunday, October 29th, posters appeared all over the city that contained the proclamation of the verdict for the 36 civilians who were all sentenced to execution by firing squad. It was also announced that they were found guilty of treason after a thorough investigation and interrogation of witnesses and finally their trial. However, this couldn't be farther from the truth. None of the prisoners or witnesses had been questioned. There was no evidence obtained. No trial was even held. All these men were not killed by the firing squad. Instead, they were all shot from a close distance, most likely on their knees, and certainly not facing forward to the executioners. And it was then that their verdict was issued.
Wow.
Now, the lightkeeper worked on the island at the time. During the murders, he and his family had been removed and transported to the mainland, where they stayed for 17 days. Later, they were removed again for 10 days from the island for the same purpose. The family lived on the northern part of the island, while the killings mostly occurred on the south end. There were whisperings that they could sometimes hear the screams at night, coming from the other side of Daksa. Whether these were real screams of later victims or the wails of restless spirits of the murders has remained a mystery to this day. Their children had even seen a human hand sticking out from the ground while they were playing. Then they would run, crying to their mother's arms for comfort, with a horrible image carved forever into their memories.
Oh my God.
Needless to say, the family would soon move away, frightened forever by the threats of having to stay silent about what had happened. The citizens of Dubrovnik were warned to not go looking for the bodies of their family members or friends, or else they might face a similar ending. The brutal killings aroused the feelings of terror, so people naturally grew quiet. Through the socialistic times, it was not allowed to publicly discuss what had happened, and one could only dream of visiting the island to lay flowers on the graves of their loved ones. Up until the Croatian parliamentary elections in 1990, it was strictly forbidden to visit the island of Daksa. Could you imagine, like, your family members are gunned down over there and there's nothing you can do about it, but you're not even allowed to go over
and like visit where they died?
Yeah.
That is, I couldn't even imagine not being able to do that.
It's bad enough that you know that something like this went down.
Right.
But then to be filled with fear, to even be able to go over in this 1.5 nautical miles. This is a short boat ride.
Right.
And
so close.
You can't, I mean, not even trying to go over and get the body, just going over there to maybe have a little ceremony of some kind or something. And you were not allowed.
Yeah. Or just go and say your piece to let go of that loved one who was taken from you.
It was so bad you weren't even allowed to talk about it. Not on the island, just anywhere. You weren't allowed to even mention it.
That is so crazy. The power that gives to the people who did those things.
What's really crazy is that you were killed under the guise of being Nazi sympathizers, but you were killed by people who were against the Nazis in a way that Nazis would kill people. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It just seems so weird.
It's a lot, for sure.
It is. And I couldn't find anything that said any of these people were guilty of anything.
Wow. That's really sad.
They were just convinced that they were or something. I don't know.
I don't get it. Like, how did they come up with this little idea that all these people on this island...
Well, because the island was home to the Axis power, because they were forced into it, of course, but because of that, they just assumed that they would all be Nazis. It's crazy.
Rude. That's rude.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, all kinds of places were also, but,
I mean, I know, but, ugh.
No, I mean, like, Ukraine was part of Russia, which was part of the Axis power. Like, all these places were part of the Axis power at one point. I mean, they took over a large swath of Europe, so it's just weird that this place was like this, but...
This tiny little island? Like, is
Well, the island... No. This happened in Dubrovnik in Croatia, but they boated him out to the island.
Boated him to the island.
They boated him to the island.
Okay. Gotcha.
Now, in 2009, an unnamed individual discovered a mass grave on the island. A team of forensic scientists and archaeologists identified and marked 2 mass graves on the island. They discovered over 10,000 human bones, bone fragments, and other skeletal material buried in what appeared to be ruins of a farm building and in a pit about 50 feet away.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
a lot.
A lot to come upon. Okay.
And this is just in 2009. This was just
not that long ago.
A couple years before I met you.
Yeah. Holy crap.
Now, in addition to the bones, these researchers found personal items which would be useful in future attempts to identify the remains. These included buttons, shell casings and bullets, jewelry, and priestly accoutrements, including rosary beads.
Wow.
The findings were removed from the excavation site to a laboratory environment for additional study. Teeth and bone fragments were sampled and cross-referenced with DNA profiles to determine any possible biological relationship with people living today. Many of the bones were severely damaged, which limited the researchers from determining actual ages. But I did come across something that aged them anywhere between 20 and 70.
Wow.
So these were young men and old men alike.
Wow. That is such a broad range of age.
Yeah,
to
they
just
didn't
be
care.
like, yep, this is what you are.
They did not care.
Wow.
Yep. A total of 53 male skeletons were discovered on Daksa Island. 22 were confirmed to have gunshot wounds to the head from a 9mm caliber weapon. Some had multiple entry points for gunshots. Others had skull fractures or fragmented skulls, and there were still identifiable signs that the bodies were bound with wire.
Oh, my God.
Sounds very torturous, actually.
Oh.
However, more victims are suspected to have been killed. The exhumation still is not finished, so Daksa probably hides more secrets. And this somber island isn't the only location where the bloody executions occurred during the war. The location of shell casings and close proximity of the skeletons suggested that they were executed at close range in a kneeling position at the actual burial site. So, execution style.
Yeah. Again, rude.
Brutal.
God. Why? I just have so many questions, and I'm not going to get any answers.
Nope. This was a long time ago.
I know.
The lack of military evidence, such as insignia or other uniform decorations, indicate that they were mostly all civilians.
Wow.
At least 3 of the bodies were members of the clergy or priests based on items discovered. Of the original 53, 14 have been successfully identified using various DNA analysis methods. Now, the locals stay away from Daksa Island. They say it's haunted by the ghosts of those executed so many years ago, and those spirits are seeking revenge. Tourists are convinced by the locals to avoid it at all costs, and water taxis keep a safe distance when passing by. Despite the fact that it's a paradise from the distance, no one is interested in living there or developing it as a tourist area. Many people have visited the island, but very few will repeat their experience. There are no eyewitness accounts of malevolent spirits, free-roaming vapors, or nefarious specters, but the avoidance still continues. In 2010, a number of bodies were given proper burials, yet many in Dubrovnik still claim that the island is haunted by the unstill spirits of the massacre victims. The island is currently up for sale, and for a surprisingly cheap price. But no one is yet to put up a bid. While it's probably not ghosts keeping buyers away, the memory of the massacre itself is haunting enough to dissuade new owners from ever stepping foot on the island of blood.
Wow.
And that is the story of Dubrovnik. Daksa, sorry. I said Dubrovnik so many times.
That is, that's a rough story. That is a lot of history and very brutal history.
It's rough. It's rough, but the problem that I come across, I'm sure you are going to catch on to this, is that there are no eyewitnesses.
Right.
There's nothing to go off of. I can't even find one story from somebody saying that they saw something.
Right. It comes across more like lore and legend.
It does.
About the hauntings.
It does.
So, I don't know.
But that's what made this one so interesting to me, was because it was like this supposedly incredibly haunted place that doesn't have much going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It doesn't have that factor of people like, oh my gosh, this happened to me here. Or, wow, we snuck on this island. Like one of the last few that we've done. Like we snuck on, and even though we're not supposed to be there and everyone told us to stay away, like we still had experiences.
Of
and
course
like, things happened. And
of course you have to. When people say don't do that, of course you want to do it.
Duh.
Now, There is another little island that I'm going to read this article about, and this is within the vicinity of Daksa Island. This is the island of Lokrum.
Okay.
And Lokrum also has a story.
So this is the one that's like a stone throw away?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is from DubrovnikDigest.com. Lokrum is a beautiful forested island next to Dubrovnik that for centuries belonged to a Benedictine order, which had built a church there. However, at the end of the 18th century, under financial strain, the Dubrovnik Republic decided to sell the island in 1798. That same year, the legend of the Lokrum curse was born. In fact, according to spoken history held to this day, the Benedictines, angry at the decision of the authorities to sell Lokrum, began a procession on the island in hooded black robes, carrying upside-down candles in their hands, reciting a terrible curse that death or severe misfortune befalls each owner Lokrum after them.
Wow.
There's more, but the reason I wanted to read this is because I wonder if there is a tie between these two.
Yeah.
Being that they are so close, and these monks were on there for so long.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what you believe personally about spirituality and stuff like that. But
yeah.
It's awfully strange that these two little islands in the middle of nowhere that nobody lives on are reported to be extremely haunted.
And you mean the ones that everyone avoids?
Like the plague.
Oh
again.
gosh,
Yeah.
This is so crazy.
Now, the first owners of Lokrum were wealthy people from Dubrovnik who quickly fell into financial difficulties, each individually getting rid of their property. The island eventually fell under the ownership of Marko Tomasevic, who died under mysterious circumstances. Meanwhile, Napoleon entered the city and became the owner of the island, only to be exiled shortly afterwards to the small Mediterranean island of Elba. After the fall of Napoleon, the Austrian Habsburg dynasty, I think that's how you say it, became owners of this oasis of silence. They quickly began the construction of a fort on Lokrum, which allegedly awakened the Benedictine curse, because soon after completion, the Austrian ship Triton exploded nearby, with 85 crew members losing their lives.
Wow.
The younger brother of Emperor Franz Joseph I, Archduke Maximilian, came to Dubrovnik to pay his respects to the dead sailors and was struck with beautiful nature on Lokrum. He then decided to do it up so that he could stay on it and entertain world leaders there. The Archduke planted exotic plants and brought animals like peacocks, parrots, and canaries there. The former Benedictine monastery was converted into his residence. Together with his wife, Belgian Princess Charlotte, he spends a good part of the year on Lokrum enjoying the peace and quiet. However, the ambitious Charlotte wants more for her husband and persuades him to become a Mexican emperor. Maximilian finally agrees and goes to Mexico, where the political situation in the mid-19th century is complicated. In the end, Maximilian is arrested and then executed.
Wow.
Lokrum then falls into the hands of his nephew, the son of Franz Joseph, Rudolf, who is married to a Belgian princess, Stephanie. When it's uncovered that Rudolf has a mistress, Baroness Mary Vetschera, problems begin. Rudolf kills his mistress and then himself. A film about this tragic love story was made with Catherine Deneuve and Omar Sharif in the leading roles. Although the Lokrum curse is never mentioned, many people from Dubrovnik will say that the curse was to blame for this. Rudolf was visited on Lokrum by his mother, Queen Emily Eugene Elizabeth, known as Sissy, who was assassinated by Italian anarchist Luigi Lucchini. The island of Lokrum is connected to another crown prince, Franz Ferdinand, who was assassinated. Gavrilo Princip shot him during the official visit to Sarajevo, sparking the start of the First World War.
What?
Now, all the owners of Lokrum came to their end in a tragic way, adding fuel to the fire when it came to the legend of the Benedictine curse. Since the end of the First World War, The island has always been in a state of ownership and remains so today.
So who owns it now?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Doesn't say.
The Oasis of Silence.
Nobody lives there. People go there.
Wow.
And I guess there's a lot of tropical stuff on there because of the first guy who brought it in. But I hear peacocks, and I just automatically think of here.
Yeah, like over by the beach where there's peacocks freaking everywhere.
They're everywhere, and they're so annoying.
I know. They are very
Anybody out there who thinks they're gorgeous and wants to come here for them, please stop.
There's a peahen who lives in the parking lot at my work.
Yeah.
And she climbs on everyone's cars.
I cannot stand them birds. They are awful. And they scream, and they get in the road, and they'll walk in front of your car, and they won't move. They're terrible.
Yes.
They are
yes,
awful little creatures.
So I think it's weird, the link that these two have together. Like there was the mass grave site, and then there was this cursed island.
Well, if you really think about the timeline, the curse happens way before the murder. Mm-hmm. But being that it's so close, and there was also a monastery on Daksa, I wonder if this curse carries over to Daksa from Lokrum.
And they just kind of got linked together in
Somehow.
this like Bermuda Triangle of islands.
Well, when the Benedictine monks made this curse, they didn't necessarily say it only had to fall to the people of Lokrum. They were still part of like Croatia and Dubrovnik.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is something that was put on all of the people because it was Dubrovnik's, politicians and stuff that forced them out.
Right.
So I'm just curious. I don't know how all this translates over and whatnot, but it's a very interesting one. And
it is.
And it is, like I said, it is going to be a shorter episode, but I wanted to tell the story because it's a very interesting one, and it's like one that leaves me super unsure about everything about it because there's not a lot to go off except for some real freaking murders that happened there, execution style, and it was a lot of people.
Like a mass murder.
Yeah.
It drives me crazy.
But they like stripped these people down and made them dig their own graves and then like wired them together and blasted out the back of their heads and dumped them in the ground.
Okay, whoa.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's crazy.
It is so crazy. Oh my gosh.
When I was reading all this, like I wanted there to be personal accounts of things that have happened there, but there aren't any. And that's what I wanted to fill the rest of this episode with. But there just isn't any.
Yeah.
There's none. And, I don't know what else to say because I can't give you any EVPs. I can't even read you a story from somebody who lived in Dubrovnik or something. Nobody goes there. The only thing, I will say this, the only thing I was ever able to find is that some of the people who live on the mainland claim that they can hear screams and moans coming from the islands at night. And that's it. That's all I was able to find. And it must be enough, or it must feel real enough for everybody because people won't go near it.
Right.
They avoid it, like, at all costs. They will not go near it.
And this is generations and generations and generations later.
But the thing to also remember is that unlike us, because, like, American people are quite cynical and jaded, honestly, and Europeans and just people over on that side of the world are generally more superstitious and more tapped into their spirituality than we are.
Yes, that is true.
I mean, we have those people here, but unfortunately our government came in and pushed them onto little swaths of land that were garbage, and those were the Native Americans. But so I don't know how much of it is people really are scared of because something's really there, or if it's just a fear from a superstition of the things that have happened there.
Right.
I'm not sure. So unfortunately, this week, I mean, we'll go through it anyways, but I'm pretty sure you can feel where I'm leaning on this. But because we are at the end of the storytelling, and I could just keep talking in circles about this because I do find it very interesting.
It is very fascinating.
I do want to ask you a question because you heard the stories.
I did.
I'd like to say you talked about the ghosty stuff, but there wasn't really much to talk about. So my question to you is it real? I know me. I'm asking her because I'm also interested. What's that? Yes. Is it real, Megan?
This is a very interesting one. I think I'm going to have to say, I don't even know if I want to put a percentage on this, But I do want to say that if what we have talked about time and time again about things that are left behind and residual energies that are just bled into the land, and I guess you could lump curses into that as well.
It has to be. They were the curse.
and the beliefs in that, and just the energy surrounding the belief and all that, just all of it. Like it has to leave something.
Well, they say that if enough of you believe it, you can manifest something.
Yeah. Yes.
So it is possible that because everybody believes it so much, that something was manifested because of the belief.
Maybe. But I feel like something definitely could be there. Is it? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows.
It's hard to tell because there's nothing to go off of.
Right. So I think I'm just going to leave it there. What about you?
I'm kind of in the same boat.
Okay.
I think a lot of it is down to superstition.
Right.
Because what happened there is real, and it really did happen.
Yeah.
It is awful what happened to those people.
Awful.
It's not like they were real war criminals and taken care of. Like a lot of, they were never found guilty of anything. They were just, somebody decided that they were something, and without any kind of trial of any kind or any evidence, they just shot them. And
so sad.
it's crazy.
God.
That's great. And I'm not going to like stick up for them. I don't know who these people were.
Right.
They could have been Nazi sympathizers, but the reality of it is nobody will ever know because they didn't have a fair trial. They didn't have a trial of any kind, even an unfair one. I believe that the possibility of a haunting being there could probably be pretty high, honestly, because we talk about the things that, are linked to what we believe cause hauntings. And I don't think it gets any more real than that.
Agreed.
Then with the Lokrum curse going on, and that, like I said, that just depends on how much you believe in the spiritual side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't have enough to give it the big old seal of approval like we normally do.
Right.
But I also, I don't want to write it off just because an entire nation of people have convince themselves that something's going on there. And like I said, I did find one thing that said that people do hear stuff coming from that island.
I mean,
but everybody's too scared to go there.
I get it. I do get it.
Would you spend the night on this island?
Probably not.
I would.
I don't know.
I would. I'd go to Poveglia too.
I don't know.
It's scary.
It is scary. I'm just not really big on camping.
Oh my gosh.
And it's camping on an island with like dilapidated thing. I don't know.
You just told the kids we were going to go camping when we moved up to the mountains.
Okay. I'm talking about like camping on island territory in Florida where there's a million bugs and it's like 1,000 degrees outside.
I'm not talking about Florida. I'm talking about Croatia. But yeah, there's just not enough to go on. But man, I would stay the night there. I think it'd be an awesome place for somebody to finally go and try to get some kind of evidence from.
I wonder if you could even get someone to take you there. You know what I'm saying?
Probably not.
Yeah, you might have to
you'd have to
find a kayak and just go.
I mean, it's not that far away. What I want to know is, are there rules like Poveglia, like you're not allowed to go there?
Right.
But
that didn't come up.
I didn't come across anything like that,
Right.
though. I just seen that people just don't go there because they're afraid of it.
Yeah.
But nothing, because like you can go to Lokrum.
Yeah. Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Maybe we need to take a trip to Croatia and just rent a boat. And we don't have to spend the night there. We can just go over there in the middle of the day.
I mean, I'd go there at night. I just don't want to sleep there.
You know how I think we could make that happen is if all of our listeners went and left us 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts.
Nuh-uh.
I mean, it would help. It would definitely help.
It would.
It would get us started.
It would. Especially all my little friends at my work who said they were going to start listening.
And you, Anthony, you told me you were going to, and you never did.
On Apple. Yeah. That's where they looked it up.
Wow.
All my little baby friends.
Oh, great, little baby friends. Thanks. I give you this sultry voice, and I can't get 5 stars. No, but really, like it would be. I think a group needs to go there one day and check this place out.
I do too.
I
Absolutely.
would love to see something on this, or pictures, or anything.
Anything. That would be super cool.
But that's it. This is it. This is the end of the episode.
I like that.
Yeah, it was an
It's
interesting
very
one.
mysterious.
It's super cool.
I like it.
It's a beautiful island too. You should look up pictures. It's really pretty.
I'm definitely going to.
It looks like the perfect island getaway.
Aw.
It's beautiful.
I love it.
It's almost as pretty as you.
Stop.
It's true.
Stop.
It's true. Oh, this is going to do it for this week, and we're going to come back. I'm very excited about next week. This literally is like one of my favorite places ever.
He has been very giddy.
Yes. I can't wait to do it.
Booze
But
Crew. Listen, he is like super duper excited.
I learned about this place years ago, and it's just been like every time I see something about it, I watch it or read it. I love it.
I know.
It's an interesting one. So where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram at forthebooze_podcast and on Facebook at forthebooze.
You can also find us on Twitter at forthebooze and on YouTube at forthebooze. And I'm still waiting. We're still open to the idea of doing videos, but I want to make sure we're doing them for somebody. So
Agreed.
I made a post on there under the page. So go on there and say you'd like it. And if I can get 30 people say that they're in, I'll start doing videos.
That'd be cool.
Yep, 30 people.
I like it.
Just get 30 people, and we will start making videos just on the paranormal stuff. So, and don't forget, we will let you know, but be on the lookout for an article on us in the Voyage Tampa magazine. And I already said it. I kind of tried to shame some people into it, but 5 stars, rate and review. Just leave that one there. But I guess this is where we're going to head out for this week. And can't wait to come back next week.
Super excited. Thanks for that one, babe. I like that.
No problem.
Well, thank you, everybody, so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.